Hello, and welcome to Better Than Art School. In this very short mini lecture, I'm going to walk you through the three dimensions of color. Color is a three-dimensional spatial concept. You need all three properties or all three dimensions to understand a color correctly, to get it accurate. If you're trying to mix a color, you need to be able to think in all three of these dimensions. And sometimes when you're mixing a color, you think you're having a hue problem, but it's really a value problem, or it's really a saturation problem. So you need to be able to pull down two of the dials and pull up the other one to really think each one of these in their own right. Okay, you need to be able to think: is the color too saturated for where it is? Is it too much of a yellow orange instead of a middle orange, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so this slide has lots of different kinds of blues. If you look in the bottom right corner, that's a very intense middle blue. If you look next to the word color, that's kind of a middle blue that's not as intense. If we go to the left side of the word color, that's a color blue moving from middle blue towards green, so it's kind of a blue-green. If we move to the bottom of the slide, that's a blue moving the other direction towards violet. It's kind of a blue-violet. Anyway, it's got a lot of different kinds of blue. But let's take this orange oval and move it through all three dimensions of color. I think that'll help us understand these concepts a little better. Okay, so this is a orange at middle value. It's a middle orange. It's not too yellow. It's not too red. And there's nothing too amazing about it. But let's move it through the three dimensions of color. So first, we're going to add some white to it. That's going to bring it up in value. Okay, so if I looked at an orange piece of paper in broad daylight, it would be higher in value. And then if I looked at it in a dark room, it would have less value. Okay, so now the darker orange. So you might say, well, that looks like brown. Brown is actually just a shade of orange. I'm going to talk about tint, tone, shade later. But for now, just know if you add white to something, that's called a tint. If you add black to it, it's called a shade. If you add gray to it, that's called a tone. We'll look at that in more detail soon. Okay, so that's the value dimension. Now let's look at the intensity dimension, or the saturation dimension. So the orange in the middle isn't at full saturation. So I'm getting it more saturated as it's moving right, and then less saturated as it's moving left. The way to think about this is if I took a canvas, white canvas, I paint it completely orange with pure orange paint right out of the tube, and I throw it outside in the sun for 3 days, what's going to happen is it's going to be getting less and less intense as the sun bleaches it. Okay, so that's a way to think about intensity. It's the chroma, it's the amount of orangeness in the oval or in the canvas or whatever. Okay, finally we're going to look at hue. So on a color wheel, that's kind of middle orange, right? And then as we move towards yellow, oops, that way, then that's what happens here. We're moving from a middle orange to a yellow orange. Okay, so we're moving through the dimension of hue now. This is a different hue. And then if we move the opposite way, we're moving towards red. This is a red orange. Okay, so middle orange, yellow orange, red orange. Those are three different hues. And let's just look at the whole shebang here. So middle orange in the middle, and then on the top left you have darker, orange getting darker in the value dimension. On the right top, you've got orange getting lighter in the value dimension. In the middle, you've got orange getting less saturated. It might look pretty similar to the value, but it's different. You have to look closely. And then, so it's getting less saturated. And then on the right side, it's getting more saturated. Okay, it's about the same. Those three ovals across the middle are all about the same value, but they're different in saturation. Then we move to the bottom, and it's a orange in the middle again. It's just middle orange, and it's moving towards red on the bottom. Left, it's moving towards yellow on the bottom right. This is how Photoshop, this is how every digital program I know of, how they use color. They use it as a three-dimensional concept. So as you move up and down this shape, you're moving through the dimension of value. As you move around it, you're moving through the dimension of hue, just like a color wheel. And then as you move in and out of that shape, you're moving through the dimension of saturation. As you get closer to the center, what's going to happen is it's going to get less and less saturated. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand color with more specificity, with more sensitivity. And there's a little French bulldog in a swing. See you next time.